Good evening. I want to convene the regular meeting of the Brattleboro Selectboard for January 8th, 2019. We know the meeting has been properly warned because we have been here since 5:15 in executive session. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the December 11th and December 18th meetings?
So moved.
We have a motion to approve the minutes of December 11th and December 18th. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0. I have a couple of things under Chair's remarks. The first is to let everyone know who is here, if you are here for this issue. Under unfinished business, we had the dangerous dog appeal. That has been taken off tonight's agenda because there's been a settlement. So if you're here for dangerous dog, you can still stay. We'd love to have you. Second of all, it's January, which means it's time for people to take out petitions if you want to hold a town office. We've got town meeting reps. Oh, we have school. We've got town meeting reps and the select board. I'm not going to be running again, which means that there's going to be somebody out there who can take out a petition. On both of those, the petitions are due by Monday, January 28th at 5 p.m. to the town clerk's office. And you can go to the town clerk's office and pick up your petitions. So this is a great opportunity, whether you want to be on the select board, if you want to be a town meeting rep. Town meeting is Saturday, March 23rd, so if you're free that day, you know you can be a town meeting rep. And again, if you have any questions, the town clerk is very, very helpful. So that's what I have.
Okay. Oh, wait.
We'll send it over to the town manager.
I just have a quick update on a major water main break that we had last night. It was on Route 9 near Edward Heights, and the Public Works crews have been out there all day long. We've had about over 1 million gallons of water come out of the main and across the road and into the field nearby. But the crews have successfully stopped that early in the day and then spent the entire day repairing it. Actually have it fully repaired now, and as of about a half an hour, 45 minutes ago, we're filling the hole. So they will soon be finished at the site. Everybody who was without water is now restored. The folks who were without water earlier today are going to need to be boiling water. The department has provided that information to those households and businesses. But it was a pretty significant, a 1906 water main pipe. Pretty significant breach in our utility system that was really effectively addressed by the Public Works team. So, thank you.
Great, thank you.
For whom
and
we
thanks
are
for
very
Public
grateful.
Works. And now it's time on the agenda for anyone on the select board who has any comments or committee reports. David.
I just wanted to, and as far as the petitions, I won't talk a long time about the school politics, but the school district, there's 2 one-year seats and 1 3-year seat open on the school board every year. That happens. And although it's possible the term will be from March until July 1st, there was a stay on the State Board of Ed's forced merger order based on constitutional issues that the courts want to decide before anybody gets too far down the line. So it's entirely possible that those terms will continue after July 1st. So please don't not try to be on the school board because there might not be a job. So, thanks.
Thank you. Is anyone else in the? That was like a triple
We're trying to
negative.
track those negatives.
Triple negative, yeah. You take the petitions, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's better. Does anyone else on the select
I
board
have
have
an
any comments?
announcement. So Dave and I have been occasionally attending the Compassionate Committee meetings, and they are in full swing with planning their forums for this spring on different topics as it relates to compassion. And I will be moderating a panel that's related to business and compassion and how we explore that in Brattleboro in April. So you'll be hearing more about that.
Great. Thank you, Shanta. Does anyone else on the board have any comments or committee reports?
I just wanted to acknowledge that there was a recent meeting concerning local media, and I think that went really well. It was prompted in part by the recent, I guess, ending of Green Mountain Mornings, which was a very important part of our local Fourth Estate. And I think it was a really productive conversation. I don't think there was a lot of conclusions that were drawn, but there was a lot of plans drawn up to really try to take some power of local media into our own hands, and I think that's a positive thing. And a lot of support for BCTV, which if you're at home, you're watching on BCTV, so or through the capability of BCTV. So I just wanted to sort of tip my hat to all the people that participated in that. I wasn't able to make it, but it was a great discussion. Since Kate dropped her bombshell, I just wanted to balance that out and say that I will be putting in a petition for putting up for another term on the select board.
Great. Brandy, you're the
Thank
only,
you.
do you have anything you want to say, Brandy? You don't have to, you're just the
I
only
don't
one
have
that-
any
okay.
reports, but I will say thank you for all coming out tonight, just so I feel like I've also said something.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Now it's time of the agenda, where we ask the public if they'd like to talk about anything that is not on tonight's agenda. So if you'd like to talk about something not on tonight's agenda, this is your chance. I think that's Dale. Yeah, come up. Come up and tell us who you are.
I'm Dale,
Dale.
and hi, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Tonight I want to talk about two things, take less than 3 minutes. One is I got to see something happen Friday night at the Dollar Tree. The police handled it very well in light of what went down. A bunch of white kids started to harass a mentally ill black man. They got him going to the point he said he had a gun and he was going to shoot him. The police were called. The kids left. The police handled it very well. They calmed the man down. They got everything done that they needed to do there. The only thing is the man got a lifetime restraining order against him now. He is not wealthy. He needs to go to the dollar store. So I'm going to go to corporate and see if we can get it reversed. The only other way to get it reversed is have that employee that wrote it out reverse it right here in town. I don't think he's going to. The other thing I wanted to talk about is what you guys did. Wonderful, wonderful job, and very transparent, is getting those inspections in. Thank you. I thought that was great. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, everybody.
Thank Glenn, right behind you.
Thanks, Dale. Is there anyone else that would like to speak about something that is not on tonight's agenda? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on to unfinished business. And as I said, the dangerous dog appeal has been settled, so we're not going to be talking about that. So our issues, we have a couple issues, or 3 issues left about the FY20 budget. The first is the Human Services Committee recommendations to representative town meeting. And as we know, representative town meeting puts together a committee that vets all the human services requests for money. And up to this point, we hadn't seen what their recommendations to town meeting are going to be, but now we have them for us to look at. And I don't know if Peter wants to add anything or
Sure,
explain.
I would just summarize by saying, as is usual for this process, most of the recommendations are similar to last year's, both in terms of the organizations and the sharing of the funding, the sort of the proportional funding for the different organizations. There are a few changes. There usually are a few changes. But the net impact and the thing that's most important for your consideration tonight is because the recommendation will go to town meeting from its own committee in its fullness. The question for you tonight is, are you comfortable with a small increase in the total amount? The funding last year for this was $146,000 for all of the organizations that were funded. And the committee is this year recommending $147,300. And so we, as staff, in bringing you, you had asked us 2 weeks ago, actually more than that now because we had the holidays, but you had asked us to bring to this meeting, provide for you for this meeting, a complete line-by-line budget with all of the changes that have been made in the prior select board meetings about the budget this year. We did that, and we also did show this change so that you could see the full impact, if you did approve this, what the full impact would be for the total budget for revenues and expenditures. And so what we need from you tonight is either to just allow that to stand or to direct us if you want to do something different with that line item.
And I just want to clarify one thing, that this comes, the sheet that we're all looking at, the 147,300 comes from the Human Services Committee's recommendation, and that not included in this piece of paper that we're looking at is the visiting nurses of Vermont, New Hampshire, or Kids Place.
Correct.
So I just want people to know that this is not, those aren't in here,
Right.
just a clarifier.
And may I just add to that, just for the benefit of the public, I know the board's aware of this, but the reason why those two agencies not included within this are important to mention this year is that their applications came in just after the deadline, and the committee looked at that and said, well, we had many applications, more than we can fund, that came in within the deadline, and so we're not going to consider what comes in after. Those two agencies approached the select board and said, well, could we at least have an opportunity to make a case to town meeting by being put on as a separate item, and you've indicated that you would do that when it comes time to approve the warning.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right. Does anyone on the board have any comments?
I have no
Questions,
issue.
concerns?
I have no issue with the slight increase. I think it's pretty clear to see where it's reflected in here, and what are we talking, $1,300 increase? And it's really for town meeting to hash out, so.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I would agree. This is a really hard job that the committee does. And so historically, we haven't seen ourselves to play a role directly getting involved in it because the committee does a fine job.
Yeah, the only thing I'd point out is it doesn't matter for us, we aren't gonna do anything about it, but if the town meeting decides to fund the two organizations, it'll put us over the 1% that last year's town meeting recommended we come up with for human service funding, so.
Yep.
Just a note.
Okay. Does anyone in the public have any comments about the Human Services Committee's recommendation? All right. Yes.
A little late, so are we at part 9B for the FY20 budget?
We're at the first one, B1. We're at 9, under unfinished business is B, FY20 budget, then Human Services Committee recommendation. Do you see that?
Okay, so we haven't gone forward towards 2 under B.
No.
Nope, you're good.
Okay.
This is the very first thing, the Human Services Committee.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Oh, you're welcome.
I missed the part A, the dangerous dog appeal.
There was a settlement, so we did not hear the appeal.
Okay.
So you didn't miss a thing. Anyone else have any comments about the Human Services budget? All right, seeing that, do we need to make a motion or anything, or are we just? No. Okay, great. All right, next up is a discussion on the rooms and meals tax, a proposal to use a portion for promoting Brattleboro. Because I am employed by the Brattleboro Area Chamber of Commerce, and it's the Brattleboro Area Chamber of Commerce and the Downtown Brattleboro Alliance that are making this proposal, I'm actually going to step away from the table and let Brandy take over. I will do one little housekeeping thing. There are more people that are going to talk than seats, so drag extra seats up. Because we want you all up there. But I'm going to disappear.
Hi, Kate. We don't know where you're going, but we hope it's great.
Okay, so you'll know when we're done.
So Peter, I'm gonna toss this to you to do whatever kind of lead-ins need to take place, and I'm just gonna handle the motions and therefore.
Sure.
We didn't receive any documents about this. This is all going to be presented right now.
I think so. I mean, we received some brief update on it, but I don't think we received anything totally detailed. Right.
So the two organizations are making a proposal,
Great.
and I think we should just ask that folks identify themselves and then actually present the information for the board's consideration.
I think that sounds perfect.
Dick DeGray, DBA Design Chair.
Alex Beck, DBA Board Member.
Cindy Ludlam, DBA Board Member.
Cindy Delgado, Chamber Board Member.
Vicky Case, Chamber President.
Take it away.
Thank you. Anytime you're asking for funds, it's never easy this time of year. There are a lot of demands. Give you a brief history. The 1% rooms and meals tax, back in 2006, I was a board member and felt that this was a prudent option for the municipality to garner funds to help offset the tax burden. That was approved at a November special meeting. And in 2007, we had our first quarter, which was the last quarter of the year, which would be April, May, and June. And that brought in $67,000 in 2007. The board didn't have a line item in the budget for anticipated revenue, so that went strictly to surplus revenue. Back then, my feeling was that we needed tax relief badly, and I felt that we didn't need to put any money towards promotions and marketing of the community. I believe at that time I was a little bit short-sighted and really gung-ho about tax relief. Over the years, I have looked at this and felt that we need to do something to market our community. And using these funds that are brought in would be a great way to do that. If we want to grow that bottom line, I believe we have to promote Brattleboro. And that's what the 10% that we're asking for of the existing number and moving forward, this would be used for. And this is going to be a collaborative effort between DBA and the Chamber, which I think is great news. I think they're the two organizations that are really committed to the community and have a lot of oversight of what's going on, good communications with businesses and everybody that's affected by this 1%. And when you think about the 1%, it's not just restaurants and hotels, it's convenience stores, it's coffee shops, wherever you buy a soda, you're paying into the 1% fund. You stay at a hotel. So this fund here, last year, it was in the budget for a projected revenue of $350,000, and it brought in $420,000. So over the last 3 years, it has brought in $177,000 over its projected income level. And we believe that with marketing and promotions of Brattleboro, when I think about all the events going on here, all the things that you would want to come and see here or do here. I mean, we have a ski hill in Brattleboro. We have a wonderful museum. We have a ski jump. We have trails. We have so many things to offer. Coming up in late January, early February, we have a great a cappella concert down at the Latches Theater. All wonderful things in our community, and our groups want to market and promote what's happening, and the goal is to get more feet on the street. The more feet that we can get in Brattleboro coming and visiting here, we believe that they're going to go out to dinner. We believe that they're going to stay in our hotels and get something to eat along the line, which will contribute to the bottom line of the 1%, which benefits the whole community, because as that number grows, the stress on the taxpayers becomes less. So, there are, sitting where you sit, I'll let Peter finish this up, unless other people sitting here want to talk about it. There's 3 ways that you can fund this for next year. Obviously, one is to put a line item in the budget. Number 2 would be to take something out of capital, which I'm not a strong proponent of, and I'm not a strong proponent of adding a $41,000 line item in a budget that's already stressed. So I would ask you to take the money from the surplus revenue, where you're sitting around 10% right now, and this would bring you down to about 9.8. I'll let Peter talk about the figures. And given the fact that the 1% has contributed significantly more money than its projection, I think for this first year, that this would be a good expenditure of money. After that, the money would come for funding this from the 1% fund itself. So this is almost like a bridge loan to get us started. And feeling that the contributions that this has made over and above, I think is a good ask out of that surplus revenue. So to attract, we must be attractive, and we need to promote Brattleboro to get more people here. And again, I think it's a benefit not only for the town 1%, but for our businesses, not only that are have the duty of collecting a 1% on items that they sell, but other businesses are definitely a benefactor with more feet on the street. So the goal is to get people into Brattleboro, and I would hope that you would support this strongly. So I'll let anybody else speak who wants to.
Oh, I'm always the first one to lose. So my name is Vicki Case. I'm the president of the Chamber of Commerce. I'm also the newly appointed associate director of event planning at the Retreat Farm. And I'm here mostly because I am extremely excited about the collaboration between DVA and the Chamber. It's been a long time coming. I think we started out sort of on opposite ends. They were serving downtown Brattleboro. We're serving businesses all over our area, and we now see the benefit of the collaboration. And I, for one, feel that in order to bring people to Brattleboro, you have to offer them something, and in order to do that, you need something to put out there. So it takes a little bit of money. It'll certainly, I think the collaboration is all there. We're all in favor of that. We're all excited about it. I think we'll do a great job marketing, because I think we have some really interesting marketing people on both of these boards who have good experience in how to do this. So I, for one, am very excited about the collaboration, and I really hope that we can move forward on this.
Great. Anybody else from this table that would like to speak?
Well, I'm excited about it as a workforce developer in the community, and sitting on both sides, trying to help people find jobs and trying to help businesses find employees. The potential to showcase our beautiful town, like it was showcased for me 4 years ago when I moved here. I just want to stand on the mountaintops and scream how wonderful it is. But you gotta have money to do that. And you know, short of us getting in our car and loading up material and driving out ourselves and doing it, I think it's well spent. Economic development and workforce development is simply tied hand in hand. And bringing more people to our town is going to drive that factor.
Great. I think it's super forward thinking. And I think for small towns to survive in this day and age, you have to think outside the box. You have to collaborate. I'm extremely excited about the collaboration. I do think it's that just the collaboration itself is forward thinking. Marketing a town, you're seeing it in other towns, you're seeing it at the state level, and I think to attract families to Brattleboro, it's not just business we're talking about. It's how does a town feel? What is the pulse of the town? And marketing, great marketing, is like, wow, I want to go there. And I think we do some of that, and businesses certainly do a great job. We would amplify that, and I'm saying yes as a board member, but I would humbly ask you to consider this. I think it's worth it.
Thanks. Alex, do you have any?
Sure, yeah, I think so much of the things that we value about our community that you can't put a price tag on, like our incredible art community, the outdoor recreation, the way the town sees the economic impact of those assets is in the rooms and meals tax. People coming from outside the community to experience what we've developed even if it's a free show that someone attends, they're gonna spend a little bit of money in town while they're here. And so it makes a lot of economic sense to me to better highlight what we have here. And it's not just the businesses, it's anything and everything, because, and using the rooms and meals tax is the most sustainable way to do it, because that's where I believe we see the impact of that part of our community.
Great, thank you very much. What I'd like to do now, Peter, is see if you have some rounding out comments, and then I'd actually like to toss it out to the community before having the select board do any kind of debating, so we can hear a full picture.
And do we get a chance to ask any questions before it gets tossed out? Or you're going to toss
I
it out
kind of want to
first?
toss it out first, and
Alright.
then let us kind of take in both sides of it, and then, I say debate for lack of a better word,
think
but
there's
discuss.
You think there are going to be two sides?
I think there's always a possibility. Peter?
Thank you. So just to make sure that everybody's aware of what we're talking about and how the decision will be framed for when you actually do complete your discussion and decide how to proceed. Dick DeGray did come in. We had a conversation about this last week, and so he framed well the three different ways in which this might actually be moved forward. I want to be clear that the amount of money that we're talking about, based on the request for 10% of the prior year receipts, last year's fiscal 18 collections through the rooms and meals tax was $421,187, and so the amount of the line item, if you did approve a 10% number to go in there, would be $42,119. So 42,119 is the number. One thing I want to say a little bit differently than how Dick did, just because of the mechanics of how the budget would work in your final adoption of it, is this will have to be a line item for you to authorize that it be spent in the manner that's been requested. It would actually have to be a line item in the budget. So the expenditures budget would include $42,119 for the promotions program. And then the question is, where would that revenue come from? And I believe, if I can put words in your mouth, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, that the option that Mr. DeGray was saying, no, we're not proposing that, we don't want that, we don't think anybody would approve that, is to fund the $42,119 with additional property taxes.
Right.
So when you said no line item, so if we say, well, it's not going to be funded with property taxes, where would the money come from for this FY20 budget? And he did accurately summarize that it would have to come from fund balance. And right now, the $295,000 of fund balance that's recommended for use in this budget is recommended for transfer to capital to support the capital program. So there would have to be something eliminated from the proposed capital program to make room for this, or you could recommend to town meeting that more use of fund balance be appropriated for use in the FY20 budget. And as we went through the numbers the other day, we did confirm that right now we would be, if you approve the budget as it's before you tonight, we would adhere strictly to our 10% guideline. There would be 10% of the unassigned fund balance set aside as not to be utilized in this budget, but to be available for the rainy day fund. If the proposal before you tonight is approved, then we would draw down the fund balance by an additional $42,119, and that would leave 9.8% rather than 10% in the unassigned fund balance.
Great.
Question, this never dawned on me before, but I think that the receipts from the 1% tax this year were $67,000 ahead of what we had anticipated. Is that
70,000.
70,000 ahead of what we anticipated?
Right.
So and somewhere in our budget is revenue from the 1% rooms and meals tax.
Yes.
Why don't we add $42,119 to our anticipated revenue and then just spend it? And hopefully it'll show up, and if it doesn't, it'll come out of surplus anyway.
So we're already recommending a $55,000 increase, because what we've seen is the first year that we saw a significant increase, we thought, well, we got to be careful. We're not going to budget for that to recur, because that was so much higher than what we had seen in the previous year. When we saw it a second time, we said, okay, it looks as though this is a new normal for us, that we're collecting quite a lot more from this. there's more activity going on in town with rooms and meals. And so this year, we thought it would actually be irresponsible to the property taxpayers to not do a more accurate estimate of what we really believe we're going to collect and be a little more aggressive with that number. So what we've proposed for the FY20 budget is $420,000 because of the $421 that we collected last year. We're actually proposing an amount of revenue that is equal to last year. I think it would be extremely optimistic and not our best way forward to put 42 more in that line item.
Thank you for that. I'd like to now open this up to members of the community to see if anybody has any input before the select board discusses the idea as well as the funding source.
Hi. Hi, neighbors. I'm Ricky Rosati, and I'm running for District 2 Town Representative, and I feel very disappointed and disgusted by your ignorance regarding taxes. To understand the oppression inherent in our taxes is very important, because a percentage of all of these taxes and any proposed increases are going to be funneled by the federal government into the military, spending billions of dollars on violent acts against humans all over the world, including here in Vermont, in America. And when I hear, I think your name is Dick.
Yes.
So when I hear Dick saying, you want to grow the bottom line and you want more feet on the street, I'm rolling my eyes so hard, because there's already enough very cold, freezing, homeless, like people who are recovering from homelessness and like struggling with homelessness. There's enough of their feet on the street, and to spend money making a commercial trying to glorify Brattleboro, and I love the people of Brattleboro, but I'm not going to glorify it into something that it is not. We need to face and confront the reality that this money, any money, should be going towards mental health resources for people, housing resources for people, resources to empower people, not to gentrify the area, not to make it more unaffordable. So many people are in debt, and we're not paid enough to pay more back. I loved the art museum for having an exhibit recently exhibiting people who very bravely were telling their story about addiction recovery, and a very noticeable pattern is how poverty stemming from colonialism, which is a combination of sexism and racism and democide and genocide and massacres, how it's resulting in just people slowly killing themselves because they have no hope and trust in people like you, people who are promoting more oppression on top of their lives that they're already struggling enough to survive.
Do you have some more, Ricky? Or are you all set?
I have more, but I'll save it.
Okay. Thank you so much for speaking. Can I have the next person? If you haven't been here frequently, please introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is David Lindenbach. The only question I would have for the proponents is, do you have even a draft budget for how you would spend the $41,000?
We haven't put our draft budget together. We would start working on that once this is approved, so that would give us 3 months to put, we know the dollar amount that we're asking for, and so figuring out how we would spend that, we would be brainstorming once the money is approved. So I believe it's prudent. I'm a strong supporter of it. I actually am part of a business downtown, and I'm a member at the chamber. And I do think it's important to do whatever we can to promote Brattleboro. And when you're promoting Brattleboro, The businesses definitely benefit with more people in town. As someone was talking about economic development, you never know who drives into your town and says, this is a pretty neat place. I think I want to move my business here. This is a pretty neat place. I think I want to live here. So there aren't many towns that I know of in Brattleboro or anywhere else for that fact that promote their town solely. And this is what we would be doing. And I think that's ahead of the curve in terms of promotion. The state doesn't do enough promoting, but when it does, it pretty much is the state. When you see commercials on TV for other states, Florida, Colorado, California, I mean, they're promoting the state and what it has to offer. Where our goal is promotion of our community, which we think is pretty special.
Thank you.
You're promoting the
Oh,
bourgeoisie,
Ricky.
you're not
Ricky.
promoting other people. No, he's had enough time to talk. I deserve a little extra
Right,
couple
but I wanna
seconds.
ask if somebody
Approval is being a
hasn't
traitor
spoken.
against the public.
Okay, Ricky.
Approval for any general tax increase is being a traitor against the public welfare.
Is there anybody who hasn't spoken yet that would like to come and speak?
Can I also respond to the gentleman's question?
Yeah,
quickly?
go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, so one
Sorry
thing
about
is that,
that.
what we think is most innovative about this is our collaboration. I don't think we plan on doing anything radically different than what we already do. It's more awareness of the events. A lot of chamber events revolve around, giving back to the community. I think, of the work that the town already supports the DBA doing and the chamber doing, or at least supports what they're doing. It's more of that and raising awareness of it. I don't believe we will be shooting commercials anytime soon. It's really the homegrown success stories that we like sharing. A little more oomph behind that. So don't, it's not a, and I would like to say it's also not a tax increase. It's a reallocation of an existing tax that's being levied.
Thank you, Alex.
Can I add one more thing? And it's about the 1%.
Quickly.
And one of the things that we proposed is a 5-year review.
That's correct.
So I wanted to make sure that got out there on the table, to say that the board would review in 5 years to see, is this working? Is this enough money? Is it too much money? Whatever it is, but the board would review this every 5 years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Woody?
My name is Bob Woodworth. I'm a downtown business owner and property owner of the Union Block and Borough Specialized Sports. I've been here quite a few years watching what goes on Main Street. And I've also watched what's gone on in terms of the development of the building of Brattleboro, what it's developed into. The chamber, been involved with the chamber, and for as many years as I can remember, I've been hoping and trying to pull these two organizations together any small way that I could. This is the most encouraging thing that I've heard in a long time, and it seems like a real collaboration that can last, perhaps, and there's a considerable amount of horsepower involved between these two organizations. In terms of feet on the street, I think we have some momentum. If you look back 10 or 12 years ago, during the week there were very few people around other than those that worked in town. We lost a lot of those people that work in town because they moved to different locations, and Lion Travel and all those places have slowed, not there anymore. However, we are replacing them with people that are coming to town, people that have second homes in the valley, second homes all around, love to come downtown. So we have some momentum, but it's a fragile momentum and it can disappear. And if you talk to many of people who come from other small towns in, northern New England, upstate New York, we are pretty lucky to be in such good shape as we are. But I think we need to keep working at it, and this seems like a reasonable amount of money to invest in that. When I pay my DBA assessment, I think, okay, that's what we're going to get out of it, is more promotion and more people that come into my store, people that may want to rent commercial space in my building. So I think this is a great idea, and if nothing else, the collaboration makes it worthwhile to me.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who has not yet spoken that would like to come up and speak on this topic? Dale?
Yeah. Dick, I gotta hand it to you. You have made downtown beautiful. People come here just to look at downtown. It has brought more people here. I spend $500 at a time for my little business to do advertising. That's like a few times a year. 41,000 to help our community is nothing. We want to talk about what it brings to the community and what it allows us access to. And yeah, we have people that are homeless. We'll always have the homeless. We'll always have wars. We'll always have all these things. But those are different systems, the mental health department, the military, whatever. Your department is to help us in this community. And I appreciate everything you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dale. Anybody else who has not spoken that would like to speak on this topic? Gershom?
Hi, Gershom Moore, local resident, hoping to run for District 3. I think that this is actually a pretty wonderful idea, considering I'm somebody who in the past has suffered from homelessness, being hungry, whatever, you know, and I'm kind of on the upswing. Eventually one day I'll start my own business and I'll come talk to you guys and, you know, get a little better known, probably look a little better of a person in town myself, and, you know, eventually I might be able to help some of our friends that are out on the street with whatever I'm doing. But I think this is a great idea to, like, get the advertisement out there. I know, like, weekly there's things going on that I may have wanted to check them out, like, man, that happened last night, I could have been doing something. So I think it's going to help us out a lot. It's needed, you know. I mean, I'm sure, I know, like, when I start doing some of my own personal dance business, I want it to be known all over town. So I think that it should happen. So thank you.
Thank you for your support.
Anybody else who has not yet spoken? Greg? Sneaking your hand up in the back.
Hi, Greg Warden, Vermont Artisan Designs and Kitchen Sink, and DBA and Chamber. More Select Board. I think that this is an idea that has been a long time in coming and something that is really needed for the community. I think that the reallocation of the tax, which comes from outside mostly anyway, really should bring more visitors to the town and should be really a good thing. I really support it.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Greg. Last call for anybody who has not yet spoken.
I'd like to speak again.
Quickly, because then we're going to close this up and have the select board have an opportunity to discuss.
Okay, so what I'm hearing people say is that they want more second homeowners and that we can't stop homelessness and wars. And in response, I would ask the bourgeoisie to raise your own awareness about poverty before trying to raise other people's awareness, and that we can't just cater to things that are actions that are going to further gentrify and make living unaffordable here.
Thank you, Ricky. Oh. At this time, I'm going to close the public participation part of this conversation and open it up to select board members who would like to discuss.
I have, so I first would also like to chime in and say I love collaboration. I'm very happy to see this happening in the spirit of collaboration, but I am going to raise some things that trouble me or things that I have challenges with. I've been living in Brattleboro for about maybe 8 or 9 years. I did not originally move here for what was being offered. I sort of just kind of found it. I do appreciate that there are things happening here. So here are my several questions, and I would like them to be considered and heard. So who are your other potential collaborators? For example, are you thinking of diversity and inclusion groups? Are you thinking of arts groups, for example, especially when you're talking about the price tag for what you're going to be spending to promote the town? My next question, and maybe this is something you've already discussed, how are businesses going to be partners in this? I know several business owners, and I know that they personally have trouble, like with their bottom line in terms of advertising or drawing people to their shops. So again, as you're advertising and promoting all of Brattleboro, I would hate to see some of those businesses fall through the crack. Also, I'm wondering, in terms of Brattleboro for who? A while back, I wrote a piece about this, and I continually think about what's the SWOT analysis? Are you going to look at and do a SWOT analysis before you spend that money? Are you going to think about the strengths, the opportunities, the threats, or are you going to use appreciative inquiry or some method to think about who this is for? There was something mentioned about success story. Whose success story? Because when I think about myself and looking for places to go out, most of the time I kind of stop going to any, and I hate to say this in public, but I will. I'm looking for places where I can go dance, or, there's no more pool table, even though I'm really horrible at it, but there's no more pool table downtown. And so I go out of town when I'm looking, and to New York or Connecticut, when I'm looking for some place, and I know a lot of people. They're not all just brown like me. They're vanilla and chocolate and all different flavors, and they, beyond them coming up here, and they like Vermont, beyond them coming up here to visit me, I would like to be able to say, and here's a place we can go dance, and here's a place. So, as I've participated in young professionals events and things like that, and I know the weak argument is always, well, we live in a white state. We don't have to, we can be trendsetters in Brattleboro. And that's what I'm looking for. Like, if I were to approve something like this, again, I'm troubled because I want to know, who are you going to be advertising to? There are some possibly missed opportunities, and I want to know how are you going to fill in that diversity in terms of age, in terms of activities, but also in terms of other types of diversity, in terms of ethnicity. Like, I used to notice that at certain events, I don't see all of Brattleboro at certain events in certain places, and everybody knows what I'm talking about. So I'm concerned about all of that, and I would need all of those questions answered and explored before I can say I'm gung-ho about this, because I have several friends in this area, and when we're looking for places to go, it's like, oh, I guess we're going to be driving into Mass, or I guess we're going to try to plan a trip to New York. So I'm very curious. There are a lot of things here that tantalize me, and then there are other things that are just missing for me in order for me to feel like, yeah, I'm staying in Brattleboro and going out into the nightlife. There are lots of, or some of the other activities. So I'm very curious about that. And most importantly, who are going to be your collaborators and fellow partners in this effort and at the table with you?
Can I respond to that? I mean, I'm anxious to respond to you. I don't know that we know that yet, but I do agree with you. I've been here a very long time. I've been here almost 40 years. I came here as I'm a single mom. I went through it all. And I think when we put a collaboration like this together, it's not just these people that you're seeing sitting here. I totally agree and welcome people participating in the collaboration, because you have ideas about how you would like to fit into the community and be part of this community, as I felt when I came here and I was raising children on my own, and I was considered whatever I was considered because I didn't have anything, and I was judged, and it was hard. And I what I love so much is that we've come so far, and so in no way would it be exclusive. I want it to be inclusive. I want to reach out, and I want to be sure that those people who have a voice, who have an idea about what they'd like to see coming to Brattleboro, have a voice in that and are part of the collaboration. That's me personally. I haven't consulted with any of these people about that. I'm just speaking up and saying that's how I would want to be, how I would like to see this happening. And it's not just about money, it's not about any of that. It's about making this town inclusive. It needs to include the people that live here already, and in order to bring people here, to live here, to party here, to have a good time here, you have to have all of that. That's how I personally feel about it. I'm just saying.
It's what you're saying is so exciting, and the questions you're raising, and I think that's the collaboration and the questions you're talking about. We need more of them.
Yep.
There's no strategic plan yet. You know, this is new, and that's something that I brought up. You know, I asked about the plan, I asked about all these things and the considerations. As a board member, I can tell you, yes, yes, and yes. Everything you said needs to be considered and thought about and planned out very carefully with input. So in terms of the hardcore answers, in terms of the target markets and audiences and how many hours away and what cities and towns, that has not been decided as far as I know. But those are the things that would be considered by both groups and certain people, you know, having those conversations. So I hear you.
Yeah, I would say absolutely. I would say two strong points that, or assets that we have is one, that our driving area, our regional drive area, is a more diverse community than Chittenden County, for instance. So a lot of the statewide marketing efforts have a lot of, or have some of those holes that you accurately described, but we also have a lot of resources in the community. We have the Diverse Workforce Development Group, which we can approach to see if they're interested. So much of inclusion and diversity is actively signaling that all are welcome and doing it in an appropriate way, not just assuming, well, if I say this person is welcome, everyone else should assume they're welcome. But it's about being intentional and visible, and I think in doing this now, we have learned from others' mistakes, and we actually see, and of you just bringing it up now, pointing out where the potholes are, actually give us a really great opportunity to avoid them and engage with the partners that you were talking about. And as I mentioned, the arts community is what I would say has perhaps been left out of some of these conversations, but this is really the direct way to draw that line from the arts community to the economic impact, because it's what they're doing that's bringing people here, and it's really us finding a way to make sure it's not just the Brattleboro community that knows about it. It's people should be driving from New York to Brattleboro for our art installations, for gigs at the Stone Church, and when we get a new pool table somewhere, to shoot some pool too. But it is the chicken or the egg, but part of it is bringing people into our community, even if they don't know why yet.
So definitely diversity and inclusion, because that's all I live in. I work in the voc rehab office, so inclusion and diversity, and making certain that what we are promoting is accessible and welcoming to everybody, that nobody feels that that's not my place, I shouldn't go there, or I won't find something for me. So I hear you, but I guess that collaboration it's still a form that we don't know what we don't know yet. So we're open and welcome. We don't have the plan exactly as to where it's going to look or what it's going to look like, and being open to having the input is important, so that we're not just specifically siloing that target to just like, okay, we're just going to target like Hartford and that's it. We're going to draw everybody from Hartford, because that's not what. Sorry if anybody from Hartford, but
I lived in Hartford.
I did not know that.
We need more than that.
right. So I just had one more thing. When I moved here, this town really did feel, to me, it felt like it had a soul. It was diverse. It was vibrant. It was a lot different from where I had been living previously. And I did move here specifically for all of the town, all of sitting in the co-op, watching a case manager from Groundworks talking to somebody there, having a cup of coffee with him 4 years ago. I mean, all of that felt good. So I would like to showcase all of our town and every bit of it.
Great. Thank you very much. I thought I would just go down the table unless
Oh, does that mean I'm next?
unless you're scared, and then we can skip.
No, I'm not sure where to start. So let me start with my hesitation, and then I'll finish with my excitement.
Sounds great.
My hesitation, I think when I first heard this was sort of being thrown out there, comes from I wasn't sure what the rush was to make this happen immediately. In other words, I was thinking it was a down-the-road situation when we have next year's Meals and Rooms receipts to look at, because it would feel more tangible and safe from a conservative budgetary standpoint, and I'm sure, Dick, you can appreciate that, being a fiscal conservative yourself, right?
I have the numbers here.
Nice.
Oh, yeah, I have the numbers too. And the impressive, and I should point this out because I don't think anyone else has yet, the 15% jump in rooms and meals take or collection that we've received just in the past year. Before that, it was also impressive. It was ranging between, I think, 3 and 5% per year. So it's an anomaly to be that high, and some of it, I believe, was due to Airbnb receipts. But not all, because when I looked into the numbers a little bit, I realized that 75% of rooms and meals across the state is meals. And that really, surprised me. I sort of thought it would be rooms for some reason, or alcohol. But it actually turns out that almost 75% across the state, I'm not sure Brattleboro's exact numbers, tends to be meals. So when locals are feeling good about the state of their financial health, they will be eating out meals in Brattleboro. And also visitors eat a lot of meals out, obviously. So my hesitation, just to get that out of the way, is that in essence, it is money that we have been expecting to be coming into our funds for the town to spend as we see fit, and we have very many needs we need to spend these funds on. We need revenue, as you all know. We just approved or sent to town meeting needed revenue for all kinds of social services that people. There's people represented in this list that really need this money, and to get there, we need to pay for it. So that's my hesitation, was the methodology, but I'm gonna sort of walk back on that and say that taking it from the surplus is a good way to look at it, because we have a 10% guideline. As the board likes to say, it's a guideline for a reserve fund that we have as a town. And last year, I'll remind people that we did dip down, for very good reasons again, to 9.6%. So in essence, we're dipping down, but we're not dipping down even as much as we did last year. So on the positive side, it's more conservative of a move here. And I think to move into the real positive commentary, I really wanted to pick up on the collaboration piece that a lot of people pointed out. It's great that this is a great sort of device or I don't know, what's the word for it? Catalyst for a collaboration between those two groups that are represented at the table. But I'd like to throw out that it's also a collaboration between you guys and every taxpayer here in town.
Absolutely.
And I'd like to sort of be part of the camp that's bullish on Brattleboro and be one of those taxpayers that says that our shopkeepers and everyone who in their hard work contributes to this rooms and meals tax has value to everyone else who doesn't necessarily have any skin in that game. But the idea that we can allocate a modest amount, 10% of these incoming funds that we're getting per year, and use it as seed money, if you will, to really lift all the boats, where I'm mixing metaphors, which is a terrible thing to do. But I like both of them, so I'm going to go with it. I really like that collaboration, and I hope the shopkeepers and the business owners of Brattleboro can also appreciate that it's a way for the taxpayers of the town, property taxpayers, and the renters through the property. They pay property tax to basically every citizen does pay, and it's our way to say, yes, let's collaborate together and make for a better Brattleboro.
Great.
You should
Thank
come
you.
up with an organization, something about better Brattleboro. No.
We're going to jump right off that boat while it's sailing. I will say that I am in support of this. On the surface, I do appreciate the collaboration. As a funding source, it's well within my risk appetite to dip from 10% of surplus down to 9.8. My risk appetite is very comfortable with that. I will say that we do have many needs in this town. And I will also say that it is our job to kind of hold both sides of the community for health and vitality. So while we're speaking about things like protecting the constitutional rights of panhandlers and fostering good police relationships with them, and we're speaking about things like Project Care and Jobs Program, on the other side, we really do need to also be speaking about how are we promoting our downtown businesses. It is folly for us to weight one above the other, because we really need both to be healthy and strong for us to thrive and make some of the changes that are going to be coming to brick and mortar towns and already are on their way. So when we're looking at probably at some point needing to make a really interesting changes about community spaces and downtown locations, we need to make sure that while we are tending to our more vulnerable, we're also supporting the vitality of our businesses. So that's why I'm in support of this. David?
Yep. All of that and all of what you said, I pretty much see eye to eye with, except for the mixing metaphors. I think seed money for floating all the boats is no, it's, you couldn't have said it more clearly. I mean, everybody knows exactly what you meant.
You could be growing things on the boats to be fair.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Or seed money to have taller vegetable plants.
Yeah.
But when you mix metaphors and it says exactly what you want to say, I'd say it's a good move. That's the only criticism I have. But as far as the proposal, I think what we have here and nothing else, I'm not ready to act on. And for a number of reasons, but not all the ones that I first thought. One is we don't even know who we write the check to try and craft the motion right now would be very difficult. There's nothing about the 5-year reconsideration or whatever it was that Dick mentioned, although I understood it better than what I just said. There's nothing about keeping data on the effect or the what's been the impact. How do you know it's because of that and not because we had more snow? Just those kinds of details aren't here, and. But I think way more important than that is in the heart of what Shanta said, and that's that we don't really, the really important intentions aren't here. And a fuller description and a more thoughtful description of what it is you want, as well as the details that I just ran through, and really articulating those intentions and the breadth of them, I think would be. I would like that to be. I'd like us to have all that before we try to improve it. And we've got a month or so until we have to get it right.
Peter, can you let us know where we need to be in this discussion procedurally right now so that we can get ourselves on track?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's not that much time. There is still a few weeks left before the board will be approving the warning for town meeting. You've got currently scheduled a meeting 2 weeks from tonight. And then you don't yet have scheduled the what was expected to be a brief meeting, but could be another substantive meeting the night that you'll approve the warning. 2 weeks from tonight, in addition to the other matters of variety of town business, there will be a draft warning for you to look at to begin to see what's shaping up for that approval. And then we were expecting that a week later you'd come together for what's usually just a 15-minute meeting to approve the warning. you do have those two times when you could give further consideration to this and to anything else related to the budget that you wish to further address. But we'll need to have finalized the warning by the first week of February, and we're currently looking at January 29th as a likely night to have
Yeah,
that
so
meeting.
less time than I thought, but nonetheless, I think that clear statement of the intentions is important.
I need
It would
more-
take us the rest of the night to try and draft a.
Yeah, I mean, there's
motion.
certainly an opportunity if you wanted to defer this to the 22nd and ask that the proposers put something down on paper to address some of the things that you've brought out tonight, then you as a board could decide on the evening of the 22nd whether you're ready to move forward and incorporate it.
Well, I
into
would
the
have
budget.
proposed that, I just didn't know the deadlines for the dates. I know it's gotta be, Jan's gotta be able to get it in by the end of January, or it doesn't get in, so.
So how are
That's
you
what-
and Shanta feeling about the idea of asking for more information with the knowledge that we would be making a decision on the 22nd?
I'm not gonna make any promises. Deadlines are not a good inspiration for me. But I would like to see more information, and then we'll see from there. Because for me personally, if you're gonna be spending $42,000 and some change to promote Brattleboro, I feel very passionately about who for, and I'm very curious about that. So I would like to see more information, and then we'll see what happens in a couple weeks from now.
How does that feel to you guys over there?
We're gonna do whatever the board would like, but there's a
Right.
couple of things that David said that I would like to address. You know, David, I've been pretty in tune with this 1% fund since its inception. And I wish I could sit here and tell you why the last quarter that we received a check for $130,000. When I look at the weather that we had from November, and I'm looking at that number, I'm going, I can't figure it out. And none of us will ever be able to give you a definitive figure why as to it goes up or it goes down. We can make a hypothesis and say, okay, it was warm weather, we had some sort of event going on, and so it brought a lot of people to the community. And so therefore you can try to justify why that number is what it is. But there has never been any analysis done, and who can afford to do that? I mean, as much money as it is, the reality is the 1% fund is what it is, and we're never gonna be able to explain why it went up or why it went down. I'm happy that it's always going up. I get excited. I call John O'Connor every time I know that check is coming, which is 2 months after the end date, and go, John, what was the number? And I've been doing it since it started. And I think that's important. As to, a couple of things that Shanta said, sitting here, I'm about Brattleboro. I am Brattleboro through and through. And when I look at, I'm the one who kind of pushed the boards to say, I think we should do this. And I'm looking at it from, we're going to promote our town and what it has to offer, events it is throwing. So the goal is to get people here, people, regardless of color, religion. I'm a people person. I'm going to talk to everybody, anybody who wants to talk to me. And I think that the more people that we get here, the goal for me is to help businesses that are contributing to this fund. We've never really given anything back to them, and they're the sole reason why, why we have this fund. And so we're saying, yeah, we want to get people here to help your business, but also to help us grow this fund. And so when you are promoting events, if we know about an event, I'm looking at our two groups coming together in this collaboration to say, yeah, if you let us know about it, we're going to promote it. And it's all about the promotion of the community. So you can say, come back in 2 weeks. But the reality is, this is about Brattleboro proper. It's not just about downtown. Woody spoke very elegantly about, downtown businesses, but this is Brattleboro whole. This whole thing is about, the chamber covers the whole community and even, businesses outside the community. But we're going to promote Brattleboro in its events, and whatever is going on here and what we have to offer. It's not color orientated, it's not ethnicity orientated, It's about getting all kinds of people to come to whatever we're promoting and to come to our community. We are a diverse community. Can we do better than that? Sure we can. When we talk about the
99% white population is
that's
not
very good.
diversity.
Thank you for that remark. I want anybody we can to get to come to Brattleboro. We're a giving community. I've said that numerous times when I've sat up there. And so this reality, this request, what David was talking about and Shanta, yes, you know, would we like to have come here with a concrete plan to say we're going to spend the money on X, Y, Z? But you just had a plan put in front of you, the human service budget. They don't come in here and say we're going to spend X number of dollars here, X number of dollars there. They're making a request, and our belief as board members and as community members, they're putting that money to good use. So at the end of the day, this is about promotion of our community with two groups that everybody that I've heard here this evening are excited about them working together.
Thank you, Dick. David, I know you want to
Yeah,
reply
just,
to that. and
I know
then-
you can't keep track of or assign what affected the increases or decreases in the tax, but you do have goals. And there are some of them that you can measure. And based on the things that we heard after Sean's comments, I'm pretty confident there are people here that can articulate those concerns, those goals into what you just talked about, Dick.
Yep.
And so I'm still comfortable saying, please bring us your intentions. I'm not asking for a full-blown strategic plan or all the steps or where you're gonna put the money, because I know it's not gonna be TV ads. But that you articulate your intentions and how you might measure the success.
So it sounds
I
like.
also, could I just make one clarifying statement? It'll be very quick. You know, my mention about diversity and conclusion was not code word for color of skin, whatever with that. But it's like, I'm just talking about, like, we need to be thinking about it, and I will not back down from that, my perspective and my need for more information.
So it sounds like what I'm hearing is that the board is going to request that you come back with a little bit more fleshed out, I'm going to say plan, but please take that as you will with a better word, and have that ready for us for our meeting at the 22nd, on the 22nd of this month.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
So
much
much.
for coming in and sparking healthy discussion and sharing this plan with us.
Thank you.
Me too, so how about,
And now-
what do we call it when we stop for 10 minutes? Okay. We table ourselves?
Kate, you're back in charge.
Yeah, and we want
Thinking
a break so you can reacclimate yourself.
Oh, I'm reacclimated.
So how do we take a break?
Thank you.
Oh, we want to take a break?
Yeah,
Real?
just 5 minutes.
Oh, we'll take a 5-minute break and we'll come back at 7:35.
Oh, so there's no motion.
Okay, we're back from our break, and we have one more item under the FY20 budget, which is just to see if anybody else has any other budget items that they need more information on for our January 22nd meeting. There was one that just came up, the last topic is on the list of.
Oh, the
Yeah.
10%.
Yeah, but is there anything else that people have? You know, we've got, town staff provided us with the updated budget as we asked them to at the last meeting. So is there anything else?
Well, I was just looking through the, reviewing our goals, and I noticed a note that I'd made about the day jobs program that we talked about. And we haven't had an update in a while. I know there were a lot of issues with the processing, I think with voc rehab and maybe youth services. I'm not sure who all was involved in it. But is there funding in there? Should we be able to do that? I know that there have been obstacles, and I don't want to take it up now, but I am not willing to put aside and say, okay, we can't do it, because I know we can. We just have to find the partner and the right structure. So I would like to see us either intentionally do that or get some assurance that we can fund it some other way when the opportunity comes up. Because as soon as this is done, I'm going to want to go after that goal again.
Matt?
Yeah.
So, it's not in there because we weren't able to define how much money would be needed and how it would be spent in order to actually get a program going because of the hurdles that you described. The groups that have been working on it have not given up on it either, and they know that we've not given up on it. This past year, it was not a funded item. It was something that we would have had to decide, can we make this happen and have it be, in any year in a $17 million budget, there are some things that go over and some things that come in under. And last year we were willing to look at this as an expenditure that the select board, if the right plan came forward, was willing to make, even though it was an unbudgeted item. And I just think we've got one more year ahead of us of approaching it in that manner because we're just not able to define right now how much money you'd need to appropriate.
When it gets warm in the spring and the issues return and the room fills up with people concerned about it,
Right.
it would be really nice to have something in place.
Understood.
So, great. Instead of waiting another year.
Does anybody else have anything left with the budget? No.
So,
Okay.
I think so.
All right, so we'll meet again, obviously, on the 22nd. Talk about the budget again. Under new business, first up is an ordinance, some amendments to the parking ordinance dealing with Frost Street, Elm Street, and the Preston lot. And I'm assuming that Patrick will give us a rundown of what we're being asked to do and why.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. There are 3 different ordinances that staff is recommending we make certain changes with to provide some improvements within the parking system. What's being asked of you this evening, however, is to conduct a first reading and to refresh everybody's recollection as to how ordinances change. We at a first meeting we conduct a first reading. 2 weeks after that, we have a second reading and a public hearing. At that point in time, if the board's comfortable, they vote on the matter. The changes to the ordinance are then published in the newspaper, and I believe it's 60 days from that, Jim? Yes, 60 days later, then the changes to the ordinance go into effect. So it's a fairly lengthy process, takes about 90 days in total, and this evening the board's asked to conduct a first reading. There are 3 different issues, and I'll just sort of list them out here and then kind of go back and give a little more detail to each one. The first one relates to snow removal and the use of the Preston parking lot as an overflow to the Brattleboro Transportation Center. The second one is to establish 8 new 2-hour meter parking spaces on Frost Street. And then finally to transition the Elm Street parking lot from a permit-only lot to be managed as a pay and display lot, and to adjust the pricing for the Elm Street lot to be the same as all other long-term lots. For example, like the High Grove lot. And I'll sort of take those one at a time. For many years, the town has had a practice or a procedure where during the times when those amber and purple lights are flashing and cars are required to be out of the parking lots to enable snow removal, that everybody floods the transportation center to get in out of the snow, and it's a great place for cars to park during such times. But oftentimes there's more cars than can fit in the transportation center that need to be off the streets. And so we've allowed overflow parking to occur in the Preston parking lot, which is just across Flat Street. There was some misunderstandings and some vehicles that were towed recently from the Preston parking lot. And what we recognized is that there really hasn't been adequate notice, and in fact there isn't even proper support for that practice in the ordinance. So we've taken a shot at rewriting the ordinance to really be pretty clear that the Preston lot can be used, and when those lights are flashing and you need to be out of the parking lots, you can be in the transportation center under cover of the roof. But if that's full, you can also use the Preston parking lot, and you can stay there till 8 o'clock in the morning. So this allows folks to be able to have some option downtown for when snow removal is being undertaken. There will be a number of other changes in addition to the ordinance change that staff is recommending. We are working on the language for new signage that would go both inside the transportation center and inside the Preston parking lot. So it's really clear, it lets everybody know this is a place where you can be here till 8 when snow removal is occurring. We would do a press release just to kind of get this information out there in the public. And we're looking at alternative locations downtown where we can install additional flashers. And by flashers, I mean the amber and purple flashers that let you know that snow removal is being conducted that evening downtown. So one of the places we think we may find a good location for would be in Plenty Park. We think this is an ideal location because if we're sort of situated there near the corner at Plenty Park, it could be seen both up and down Main Street and up High Street. And it's important that that notification be prominent because people need to know when we're going to be removing snow from the parking lots, and they need to know where they can go, right? If I can't stay here, okay, but where can I go? So the first change is to better provide for the ability to use the Preston parking lot as an overflow to the transportation center during snow removal. Are there any questions about that
That makes sense.
first concept?
Makes a lot of sense.
Great. The second one relates to goings-on down on Frost Street, kind of right near the Elm Street parking lot. There have been a number of transitions in property ownership in that area, particularly at the Cultural Intrigue building and the one just west of it, the former auto body shop. Has been purchased, I believe, by Whetstone Brewery, and so the use of the properties in and around that area is changing. There is a number of businesses that have contacted us indicating they're going to be doing retail type activity and or education activity that would have lots of either students or visitors coming on a regular basis. And so there's been a number of requests to take a look at that area and see what, if any, changes make sense to the parking in and around Elm Street and Frost Street. And so staff is proposing two different basic changes. One is, and there's a copy of a plan that was included in the board packet, and it looks like this. And it's to add 8 two-hour metered parking spaces on the south side of Frost Street between the entrance to the Elm Street parking lot, the northerly entrance, and the most easterly entrance to Brattleboro Kiln Dry. There's a proper enough space. We had the Department of Public Works engineer go out and take a look at this. There's adequate space for 8 spaces there. And so we would be seeking the board support for installation of 8 meter parking spaces there on Frost Street. Are there any questions about that?
Just a quick one, there's no issue with those, the new businesses and vehicles coming in and out?
How so, sir?
Well, if you, the south side from Preston lot west, right?
The south side from Elm Street lot west.
That's what I meant, yeah.
Yeah, from Elm Street lot west. So if you're...
Which would narrow the street if somebody was going in and out of the Mocha Joe's or something.
So we've taken a look at the road width, and the main concern was truck traffic and the ability for two-way traffic to occur with cars parked in those locations, and we think it's feasible based on the engineering that's been performed there.
In addition, the owners of the new businesses are the ones who actually initiated this. They asked the town to take a look at this situation and see if we could provide some more retail-style parking in this area.
Oh, interesting. I thought it was the opposite.
No.
Thanks.
Do you have a question?
Hi, I'm Ricky Rosati, and I'm running for District 2 Representative. And I've been coming to the Select Board meetings since about July 2018, and I have listened to so much time spent together discussing very detailed concerns about parking and cars, and I want people to recognize that is elitism and spend at least 10 times as much concern and attention to detail as the crisis that is going outside of people who are homeless and freezing in the cold and starving, and this microphone is probably broken. I also want people to think maybe 3 or maybe 10 times as much too about how if they broke down a count of the minutes and words used by men who are speaking, especially white men who are speaking at these meetings, then they should think 3 to 10 times before interrupting or silencing or suppressing other people from speaking. I don't want to be rushed, and I don't want other women and non-binary people to have to feel so pressured when they speak during our time together to say, oh, I just need a quick comment. I just have like a minute, something quickly to say. It's like we should be able to take our time. This is going to fall.
Can you come over and microphone? Great, thank you.
All right, Patrick, so you have number 3rd. Oh, I'm sorry, Tim.
Well,
I'm sorry.
Would you like some questions at the end, or would you like it now?
Either which way, I'm ready.
Do you mind?
Go for
it.
First of all, I serve on the Traffic Safety Committee, and it came through our committee. And I wanted to point out to folks that might not be thinking in this way. I used to live on Frost Street. I still own a building there. And Frost Street has a lot of problems with speeding. It's because it tends to be like a straightaway at this point. And I really feel like putting these spaces here will have a traffic calming effect. We did discuss it a little bit in traffic safety, so that's a positive. The one thing I just wanted to caution, and I'm not sure I had a chance to look at this when we discussed it in traffic safety, is that the entrance, as you describe it, the entrance to Sursosimo Kiln Dry, is actually an exit. So we should remember that the big trucks will be turning right mainly. Sometimes they come out because my house is down by the entrance. Sometimes they reverse it just to change things up and keep things exciting. So I'm just afraid that last 8th car might get a little clip from a driver occasionally. Just something to double check with our DPW. But if you, because I can't judge distances too well. There is.
Yeah, and what I can tell you is that the Public Works review was not based on my utilizing the words entrance rather than exit. I mean, they came out and measured it. We can certainly ask them to double check, but I think unless I hear otherwise from Steve Barrett tomorrow, we're in good shape.
Did he leave already? I'm just kidding.
I have no idea.
I'm just kidding. He's had a long day and long night. That was a terrible job.
We'll ask him to take a look and confirm that for us, and if there's any changes, when we're back in 2 weeks, we'll recommend that.
Don't want to micromanage. Just wanted to point out that either a clipping or a big wide turn might happen. Get into the other part of the roadway. Thank you.
All right, so you want to talk about recommendation number 3?
Sure. Recommendation number 3 relates to the Elm Street parking lot itself, which is just across the street. The Elm Street parking lot is presently managed as a permit-only parking lot. There are 40 permits sold. It's been sold out for several years now, so it is a lot which is getting a lot of attention. But it's managed permit only. And we think given the changes in what's happening down in that area of town, adding some flexibility that would enable that lot to serve both as a long-term lot, but also could potentially be used for, only an hour or 2 at a time, is probably the most flexible solution that would support all sorts of different activities at that location. And so we're recommending that it be managed as a pay and display lot in exactly the same way that we're managing, for example, the High Grove lot or the Harris lot. We're similarly recommending that the fee structure for the use of the Elm Street lot be made equivalent to that of all other long-term parking lots. And the rationale here is that some years ago, Elm Street lot really was sort of distant, a little bit more remote. And so it has always been priced far less than any other of the long-term lots, because it was kind of, back there. But because of the changes we've been discussing, it's not as remote as it used to be. And in fact, it's a much more desirable location. So instead of the $55 a month, $55 a quarter fee for a permit, we would be recommending the equivalent for all other long-term lots, which is $100 a quarter. And the hourly rate, once the pay and display kiosk was installed, would be the same as any of the other long-term lots, which is 40 cents an hour as of February 1st.
Anyone have any
I
questions?
have a question. So right now, the co-op uses that for their employees, right? So that's is that correct?
It's correct, but I would like to clarify exactly what they do.
Great.
So there are really two Elm Street lots.
Okay.
In a sense, they're somewhat segregated in that the spaces which are immediately adjacent to Elm Street,
correct,
are effectively owned by the co-op.
Okay.
And that stems from an agreement the town made with the co-op years ago to establish the Whetstone Pathway.
Yep.
We took some of their land, and in exchange, we provided them parking spaces.
Okay.
And so I think it's 10 or 12 spaces that are literally just perpendicular to Elm Street are not part of this and wouldn't be involved. Those internal to the lot, I know the co-op does purchase permits for more than just the spaces they own, and so this would affect them in that way.
Just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Well, I get the sense that this will be the least popular of the decisions we make.
And, I have a comment too. I didn't want to.
No, that was just a snide remark. It's not even worth a comment.
And now, I know the answer is yes to this, Patrick, because you're always on top of stuff, but we're ordering another pay and display kiosk, I'm assuming.
Well, I was going to wait until I got the sense that the board wanted to move ahead with
Yeah,
this.
well, I mean, if we approve this, we're going to add another
Yes,
kiosk.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
I knew it was going to be yes. Yes.
I can say, though, that the 8 parking meters will just come out of existing inventory.
Great. So the plan would be at the January 22nd meeting, we do a second reading and a public hearing, and then we would, if we choose to approve or no.
Okay.
Does that sound good to everybody?
I was confused.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're talking about this again on January 22nd.
Whatever you say, Madam Chair.
Yeah. That's right.
Thanks, Patrick.
Next up
So
is,
this like a time where the public can make suggestions for what pedestrian crosswalks that they would like in addition to town?
This is not the time, because this is specifically just about these parking lots, but the best avenue for that is the Traffic Safety Committee. And have you ever been to one of those?
I saw that was happening this week.
Next week, actually, and this month's meeting might be canceled because sometimes there isn't a lot of business, and then other months we have a busier agenda. But if you want to talk to us in our office tomorrow about you're interested in those issues, there's a process where we can show you what residents submit to actually start the process of reviewing those kinds of suggestions.
Okay.
Does that sound good? So next up is some town school property that's located next to the fire station on South Street. And the town school board's gonna give it to us, and Patrick will tell us more about that.
Sure. So I would say this is the last part of the police and fire project, but there's actually a piece coming up a little later in the meeting.
that's true.
This is one of the last actions around the police and fire facilities project. As I'm sure the board will recall, early on in the execution of the police fire facilities project, after meeting with the town of Brattleboro School Board, the board asked that the town take ownership for the land underneath and in and around the West Brattleboro Fire Station at the completion of the rebuilding project. And so we're asking this evening that the board accept the property being conveyed by the town of Brattleboro School District and to retire the 100-year lease that has existed between the town and the town of Brattleboro School District, which dates back to 1980. So included in your board packet was a map of the survey that was performed earlier this year, and the parcel which is being subdivided and conveyed to the town includes not just the land underneath the firehouse itself and the parking lot, but by parking lot I mean the one immediately adjacent to the firehouse, not the larger parking lot which will remain the property of the town of Brattleboro School District. But the land's also just to the east of the firehouse. You see where the sidewalk is. That's being, the concept behind this is that there have been a number of groups that have been interested in a community space where, you know, maybe they can have a gathering of some kind. And so this is going to be an opportunity for that to exist, that the town can protect and preserve. And in addition to that chunk of land, there is a marshy, sort of an undevelopable section to the rear of the firehouse, which is also being incorporated into the parcel. So from a pretty high level view, on this map, everything but the large parking lot will become 16 South Street and will be owned by the town in perpetuity.
Great. And we don't have to pay a dime for it.
They're being very gracious.
Yeah. Good. Does anybody on the board have any questions or comments about this?
Seems straightforward.
No. Does anyone in the public have any questions or comments about this matter? Seeing none, does anyone like to make a motion? Or would anyone like to make a motion?
We made motions tonight.
I know.
I'll make a motion to accept the property at 16 South Street conveyed to the town by the Brattleboro Town School District, to cancel the lease agreements with the school district related to that same property, and to authorize the town manager to take all other actions necessary to complete the conveyance of the property and the cancellation of the leases.
We have a motion to accept the property at 16 South Main Street, or I'm sorry, South Street. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Next up, we do believe this might be the final.
It might be.
Final action we take about the police fire project. So I'll turn it over to the town manager.
We hope that it will be for the select board, and it'll tee it up to be what we hope will be the final time that representative town meeting will consider the project. So you'll recall that as we were completing the basic construction of the three facilities, that there was a list of things, actually, that probably had about 10 items on it initially, and then as we were working closer and closer to completion, some of those things actually did get authorized by the select board. But as we approached the real finale, there were three things that were going to require some additional examination and consideration for you to authorize to move forward. And in addition to that, had the complication that I'll explain in a moment about being at the 62 Black Mountain Road site where we converted the old Brattleboro Reformer building into a police station. And so for those reasons, these items were different. And the status of them was that we would complete all the rest of the construction, pay all the bills, and then visit with the Police and Fire Facilities Building Committee, the Citizens Advisory Committee that the Select Board had appointed, around these items to get a recommendation from that committee to the board, and then get some guidance from the board about how to proceed. The PFFBC recommended that all of 3 of these pending items move forward. I'll describe each one briefly here in just a second. And when we brought them to the select board in the spring, 2 of them didn't need any further like engineering work or anything like that. You just wanted to make sure that by the time you were asked to take an action, as you are tonight, that we had confirmed or updated budget estimates for those projects. The third piece actually needed some professional design, and that's a carport that's proposed for the police station. And so the PFFBC and the select board both had embraced the idea of a carport as being an appropriate expenditure of public funds to protect the police cars and improve the operations of the police department. But we didn't have a design for that. We had a thumbnail estimate of $150,000, and we needed to confirm that an appropriate carport could be built for that. So what's before you tonight is the high roof section of the police station. You'll recall there was a low roof and a high roof section. We did the low roof replacement during the construction of the main project. That was actually an older roof section from the original building. It was in very poor condition, and so we replaced that at that time. The high roof is not completely worn out, but is getting there. It was estimated as the construction was occurring that it might have 5 to 10 more years of life in it. That would make it 3 to 8 more years at this point. The concern is that as it approaches the end of its useful life, we have had some leakage already from this roof. We've been fortunate that the place where it has leaked has been over the sally port and not over the occupied office areas. So it didn't do any damage, but there's the potential that additional leaks in the future in this area could do damage to what the town and the taxpayers have invested in the renovation of the space. And so we have updated this number. It was previously estimated to be $90,000. We believe it's actually going to cost approximately $100,000 to replace that section of roof based on current prices. And we are asking you to recommend to representative town meeting that we proceed with that. The carport item, actually I'll mention the carport third. We'll have a presentation here in a moment. So let me mention the one other item and then finish with the carport as far as the new items. And then there'll be a little bit more information after the carport presentation that we should go over as well to finish the details of this. But the second of the third items is a digital alarm receiver to be installed in the central dispatch operation, which is a function that serves both the police department and the fire department, as well as communicating more broadly to the town about emergency situations. But this particular piece of equipment would be a fire piece of equipment installed in that location. It would be modernizing the existing obsolete piece of equipment that would otherwise have to be replaced is a wired piece of equipment that connects to the wired alarm system throughout the town. That technology is moving to wireless. We expect in the long run to no longer have street boxes because that wired system won't be needed any longer with everybody having a cell phone. But we will always need the complex network of alarms in buildings, like that box right over there. When that gets pulled, it gets read by an alarm receiver at dispatch, so dispatch knows where the emergency is occurring and can send the appropriate resources. We want to switch to wireless, and we can do that for just a couple of $1,000s extra. So it would cost $30,500 to buy more or less the kind-for-kind replacement for the wired system, and $33,000 to replace it with something that uses the wireless technology. And we think it's an important step forward to do that. We recommend that that be also recommended to representative town meeting. Finally, the carport. So the purpose of the carport is not just to protect the vehicles, although it'll obviously serve that benefit as well, but through all the years that the police department operated from this building and while they've been operating so far up at 62 Black Mountain Road, they've had the disadvantage when dealing with the weather in Vermont at this time of year of needing to do things during active snowstorms. It's been an especially difficult situation, but even when cleanup is going on after a storm, the cars are in the way. There's a lot of time that the police department has to spend moving the vehicles around to get out of the way so that the lot can be cleared. And just doing their basic work of getting the vehicles inspected and loaded and ready for a shift. is much more difficult when the weather is bad. And that's especially true in the snow. It's true, obviously, in the rain as well, all throughout the year. And so the chief had made the recommendation during the project, and then in the conceptual consideration back in the spring, the select board had said, yeah, we think this is an important thing to do, but we got to know that we can build it for the expected price. So we were asked to hire a professional design firm to actually do a design of the carport and confirm to us that we can expect to be able to construct it for $150,000. We hired Austin Design. Bill Austin is here tonight. And we're really pleased with the work that they've done to prepare the plans for this, and the collaborative work, the interactive work that we did together around making sure that it met all of our needs and was a good, strong, basic structure, but could indeed be built for the $150,000 budget. And Bill's prepared to present some
Great
information for us this evening.
Thank you. Can I ask you a question while they're setting up?
Sure.
Did the cost of hiring Austin Design, is that coming out of the police fire budget?
The Austin Design expense came out of our general engineering budget. It did not come out of the police fire budget.
And why is that?
It can be. We could
Okay.
add it. We didn't, because it would be charged to the police department, and that's what we're going to talk about before we're done, and I can talk about it now if you'd like, is how we came within $7,000 of the cap that town meeting had established for the police portion of the budget. So we didn't have $10,000 that we could spend against the police portion of the budget at the time.
Because I think this is the thing I asked about, and then I couldn't remember if this was it. Because I remember
Okay.
there was something I said, why is it coming out of the general fund or
Actually,
whatever?
that was the $64,000 one.
Oh, that was that
which is recommended to be reallocated in the actions that you're taking tonight. But we can do the same thing with the $10,000 for this design if you'd like to do that.
Yeah, we'll let them go first. Then I just was with
Sure.
while they were. This has no bearing on their thing. Hello.
Are you waiting for me?
Anytime. Yeah, I had a brief.
We're waiting for
off the track.
Okay. My name is Bill Austin.
You'd have to speak into the mic so
I'm
people on
speaking to
TV.
the mic?
Yeah, it's for the TV. not
Okay.
us, so.
Will this be good enough?
I don't know, Russell, tell us.
Does that work?
Yeah?
Or should he sit down? Oh,
Here comes the tech guy.
the smart people.
But it looks like it went off. Well, while we go through the requisite technical difficulties, let me just fill you in a little bit about me. I've been an architect for about 40 years. We opened an office here in Brattleboro, I think, 2.5, 3 years ago, primarily because about half of our company lives here in Brattleboro, and also partly because we do a fair amount of work now in the state of Vermont. We also have an office in Greenfield, Massachusetts, which is where I have spent the better part of my life. And again, about half of our office lived in and around Greenfield, and we also do a lot of state work in Greenfield. So we wanted to have a real presence in both places, and have the people who work with us be very close, to where they can work and whatnot. I myself, my wife and I, moved to Brattleboro just a little over a year ago. We've been coming to this town for over 40 years, maybe close to 50 years. Ever since I moved into Western Mass, back in the early 70s, and are now very happy to be residents of Brattleboro. We still haven't quite wrapped our mind around the fact that we are Vermonters, but it still feels good nonetheless. Anyway, Peter approached us about coming up with a design for the carport, which we were extremely happy to accept. Appreciate the town thinking of us, and so now have an opportunity to return in kind and talk a little bit about what we came up with. I have a stand-up comic routine I might launch into if you don't get a signal much sooner. Peter, I thought we were going to bring printed drawings, and then I was told that you were going to print your own drawings.
The select board does have the printed ones in front of them.
Okay, terrific.
Yes.
All right, so if all right, tell you what.
The old-fashioned way.
Want to do it the old-fashioned way? Would you like to borrow one of ours?
No, actually,
We can
if you don't
share.
mind me looking over your shoulder. Probably. Okay. So, as Peter mentioned, what we're looking at here is sort of the second iteration. Initially, we wanted to design a carport that was only supported at the back and a cantilevered. And
Something just happened.
You got
It's
something?
gone again.
Okay. Maybe we got something. And so we explored that. Part of it had to do with the ability for vehicles to move in and out of the carport very, very quickly if they needed to. After exploring some ideas and talking with Peter and the chief, we opted for exploring this concept really because the first concept was not going to come in on budget, so there was no point in pursuing that. Okay, so let me go back to the microphone.
Thank you.
This is just a kind of an impressionistic rendering of the carport. And we go to the next page. Chief requested 12 spaces. Currently there are 11. There are 11 12-foot wide spaces, so we swapped it into 12 11-foot wide spaces, which is adequate for keeping the doors, having cars side by side, being able to open the doors, to do the cleaning, the servicing, the rebooting, and all the things that need to happen. After looking at potential mixed use of trying to incorporate some wood for aesthetic purposes, looking at wood structure and whatnot, we landed on an all-steel structure as being the most cost-effective, most straightforward. And then we landed on this particular plan. We spoke to both steel fabricator who we work with and our structural engineer in order to get preliminary prices, and the two come into at about $150,000, which we can say at this point plus or minus 10%. So we think we're close enough that we should continue on with the design process.
Can I interrupt you just for a second? The distraction of this is way more disruptive than whatever value it might add that these don't already have. So would you just give it up, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to assume my position.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so if we go to the next page, basically we had explored options for different spacings of the posts and steel posts and beams, and have opted on to the middle one, which is a 22-foot wide bay. That gives us a good balance between span and economy of parts, but without being so broad that we then get into heavier members that would cost more money. So that kind of established the structural pattern. We're going with a simple shed roof with a large overhang. The way that the property is set up, the carport, the high open side faces south, which is good for passive sunlight coming through. The snow would slide to the north to the back and be kept out of the way. One of the charges given to us was the hope that this roof could be used for mounting PVs. It can be, but it's not an ideal situation because of the roof that sloped to the north. Down to the north, the panels would have to be put up on brackets in order to face south. But that is a possibility, and so there's nothing in this plan that would prevent that from happening. Whether it goes forward or not, there may be other more optimal solutions to providing PV.
If I might just add something, Bill, there. I want to say in the affirmative, we understood that within the community, that was a really important element to some people. So it's not here in part for the practical reason that Bill pointed out, but in larger part because there's not enough money to do that within this budget. So this will, the $150,000 would build a basic structure, and the structure is intentionally strong enough that if we decided to go forward with a solar project in the future, then the kinds of sort of structural element that he described could be built there to support the mounting of the cells to face south.
Yeah, that's exactly correct.
One observation about that, since we're on that topic. At this point, if there's a good heavy snow winter, the snow is going to shed off the back of this, unless it all melts, which would be nice, and then it would be ice back there.
Mhm.
And being on the north side, it's going to pile up, and I noticed there is a wall of some sort, or some sort of enclosure along the back. And is that designed to withstand withstand that kind of abuse? I know what happens in the back of my house.
Yeah, I mean, we've done a lot of work in ski resorts and whatnot. So yeah, snow management, precipitation management is all part of it. So the answer to your question is yes, it'll be plenty strong enough for whatever may slide. Fortunately, it's a fairly shallow pitch roof, so there shouldn't be much sliding, and certainly strong enough to support whatever piles up and whatever wind loads. The whole thing will be obviously designed to withstand significant wind loads as well. So really, it's just a simple steel post and beam frame with purlins, and then we would clad it in a metal roof, probably not a standing seam metal roof, which is fabricated on site, but rather more than what you would see in agricultural buildings, and that metal roofing would come down and probably wrap around the back. Most companies that make this kind of roofing also make acrylic or polycarbonate panels that fit in. So we have the possibility of over each bay of swapping out a metal panel for a plastic panel so that there'd be additional natural light towards the back of the carport. Again, there's some fine work going on, and so we want to optimize light and whatnot. Likewise, we may end up not doing that, but perhaps doing a translucent panel around the back. That'll be driven by further cost analyses as we go down the line. The steel frame would sit on concrete piers. That's one of the variables in the cost. We're hoping that we can core down, place the piers with minimal disturbance to the asphalt that's in place. But we're talking about subsurface conditions, and we haven't poked around yet, so we don't know exactly. Worst case scenario is that we would have to dig larger holes, which would mean then some of the pavement would have to be removed and replaced. But our goal is to, with the technologies available, we think we can avoid that, but at least that would be our goal. The building requires very minimal amount of additional work. There's no plumbing out there. It needs to be wired for lighting. Chief, is there, besides lighting, we didn't have anything else in mind, did we?
Lighting with electrical sockets.
Right, well, yeah, for equipment
Right,
and whatnot.
right.
Yeah, but we're not doing any IT plugins or.
No, sir.
Yeah. So an extremely basic wiring system. And so at the end of the day, it's it's very straightforward, very simple. Nonetheless, we tried to, since it's unfortunate we have a 3D model, which we're going to show you, give you a view of it, but you do have the images, I think, on the last page. So we're trying to do something which is, minimal, cost effective, but nonetheless has a little bit of presence to it, so that it's, respectful of the work it does, respectful of the police department and the overall facility there. So I think that covers most of the base.
It's nice looking. It's very nice looking.
Thank you.
Now, where exactly on the property is it gonna be? Like,
It'll sit directly over the parking as it already exists along the, so you know where there's the fenced-in area at the northwest corner of the property?
yeah.
And then just coming straight out from there, there's these parking spaces that are striped.
Okay.
This will sit over
oh,
those.
there, okay.
That was the exercise.
Could be. Yeah, no, it looks, I think it looks really nice.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any comments?
Does
Questions?
anyone else think that $150,000 is a little high for a park?
Well,
I do.
I'll walk away from that.
Yeah.
There you are, Tim.
Somebody's on your side.
But I trust people's recommendations who know a lot more about
Yeah, it's
building
for a
these
living.
things than I do.
Yeah.
And welcome to the community.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited to love Brattleboro for all the time, and
Yep.
it's good to be part of it.
Nice. Thanks for joining us up here.
I'm assuming that the police department is happy with it, or we would not be seeing the proposal.
I hope so.
Okay.
Who's making all these motions?
Can I go back to my question?
Please.
My question is, why aren't we paying for the design of the carport out of the police fire budget?
So we can. The reason we didn't is because that would have put us over the 4.5 million.
Okay.
And so in the same way that we're asking that the console, the Motorola radio console that was installed at the end of the job in the dispatch center be reallocated against the bonds and instead of the capital fund, we could do the same thing with the $10,000 design cost for the carport.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, to me, any expenditures
Sure.
to deal with the police fire should be paid out of the police fire
I-
fund.
I- yeah,
I don't know if
that's-
anyone disagrees with me.
We didn't intentionally leave it out.
Yeah,
We
I actually
just
don't.
didn't bring it in like we did with the 64. I think it's a good catch, and it would just, we can go over the math in a minute of how it would modify
Yeah.
the math on page.
Yeah, if that makes sense to everybody else.
It makes sense to me.
Yeah. Okay. Now, were there other, we've got the carport was the most thing that we had to see a design of, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
That's right. And then there was also, from the fire department, an explanatory memo about the importance of the piece of equipment that I described earlier.
Yeah.
Both chiefs are here if you need to hear anything further from them about that.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions about that, and also, about that. This is a new, I heard the explanation, that it's a new system. It talks about, on the second page of the, I think the second page of the memo, it talks about this is the first step in the transition to upgrade to this system. And and that's the 33,000 or whatever. Yeah, the
Right.
33,000 for this. Is there more involved in upgrading to upgrading the system? Is there more stuff that has to be, is this it? Now you're wireless?
This would be the beginning step. As I pointed out in the memo, the whole municipal system is obviously aging. And what we're hoping for is this receiver that we're buying will receive not only the hardwired alarms, but also what we call radio boxes.
Yep.
So going forward, we're going to transition from the hardwired system to a radio box system, so the receiver step one, step two would be the radio boxes.
And Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, but the investment that's required to be made in those radio boxes, building by building by building, that's a cost borne by the people who are actually building or renovating a building.
Right.
That's not a town expense. This would be the town expense for the
Oh, I see.
receiver for all those alarms that are around in buildings around the town.
So we've got a receiver, but right now, the buildings around don't have the technology to send the messages to the receiver.
They do.
But it's not wireless.
That's right.
Right, but the wireless will, so will the message that they send not wireless, if they don't make that investment, because what they got works for them as far as they're
Works
concerned?
with the wireless receiver.
Will we get the additional information from their old signal because of this new receiver?
Yes.
So they're, okay. Now, my second question is, is there an urgency to this, and why wouldn't it be if in the capital plan or in the regular budget? Why are we asking to use this money, which could otherwise be used for something else?
Right. So I'll ask Fire Alarm Superintendent Newton to jump in here if I get this wrong.
Okay.
When we moved from Central Dispatch downstairs to Black Mountain Road, when we moved the receiver that was here, which is a wired receiver, installed it up on Black Mountain Road, it failed. We could never get it back up and running. We took the receiver from, I keep looking over my shoulder waiting for him to smack me, from Station 2, which is the lesser of a receiver, which is right now serving the purpose at dispatch. But that one is, I can't remember, how old is that one up there now?
The receiver that we're currently using is from 1982.
Oh, my God.
And,
Nice.
yeah, if that fails, obviously now we're in deep trouble. We had nothing that would be receiving these alarms from the community. That's the urgency of replacing this. Now, this was something that was asked for in the original budget of the project, and it got bumped out to where we are today.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
Dale, yes.
Yeah, I know this is a preliminary, but I would like to know how long is the life expectancy at 150,000 for carport? And I'd like to ask, if it was used to keep the weather out, why is the front so open? That's where you'd have to scrape the windows and windshield and stuff. Why, it's only 11, is it 11 feet high? How tall is that building?
Yeah, it's about 11 feet high on the high side.
Okay, so with the wind blowing in and the snow blowing in and everything on those three sides, is there any way you can adjust it to put like that transparent siding up to prevent on the ends and in the front top to prevent the snow from coming in on their hoods and their windshield, so that if they had to leave real quick, I mean, you're paying that much, you might as well get those little extras in, right?
Man, that's a good point
At
about
this point,
It's a huge overhang.
the winter prevailing winds come from the northwest. Northeasters obviously come from the northeast. So we think the bulk of the protection takes place overhead and in the back.
But up there on Putney Road, the bulk of the wind is actually coming from this, that's the west. So it's actually coming more south and east, because the north is basically, yeah, it is coming there, but there's the hills behind it. So you're gonna get more from the front. I'm just trying to protect those cars.
You're doing good.
The building costs
Yep,
are
we
forty.
appreciate it. I appreciate it,
The building,
And we need safety.
The building could be easily modified down the road, so you get it built as is, and then if it turns out that, micro climate conditions around that require some additional paneling, we can do that.
Yeah.
Good to know.
What's the life expectancy of a steel building?
Well, the steel frame is good forever. the metal roofing. I'm not
65
sure.
years.
Yes,
Yeah.
typically,
For a
yeah.
si-
So,
Oh, I used to build, so I.
so there you go, a good long time with doing the maintenance.
We're not picking that up unless you use the microphone.
Okay.
That's all right.
You want to
Yeah.
recap a
We're just
little?
talking.
No. The recap
Yeah, but
for.
the people at home can't hear, and
well,
they want to know what you
yeah,
got to
well,
say, Dale.
Yeah. And for the recap for the people at home, Dale asked a very good question, which is what's the life expectancy of the carport? And it's at least 65 years.
The roof.
Does that make sense? Is that what the answer was? Okay.
It's also got a big overhang, which helps keeps snow off and ice off the cars.
And may I?
Yes.
Just one last thing about the protection against the blowing snow. We actually did discuss the possibility of this actually being a garage rather than a carport. We had always discussed it as a carport, but for exactly that reason, full enclosure was considered, and it was ruled out very early as being just far too expensive.
Yeah, but I'm not asking for flowing clothes, I'm asking not so that it doesn't blow in and on Okay,
Yeah.
I'm too tired.
No, we understand. We got you. We got it. Does anyone else have any other? I have one thing, but it's more about the motions. The three
really?
motions for the money, we're saying expenditure of approximately.
Yes.
Now, I'm kind of nervous about doing an approximately, because what if it's 105,000, not 100? I mean, can
Exactly.
we say
Not to
not to exceed 100 or
So
not to?
you can. The reason that the motions related to, remember, these would be for the warning.
Yeah.
And so the motions related to capital items that go before town meeting are usually worded as approximately because of the fact that once it comes time to actually implement the project, the select board will make a decision about what to award. And sometimes there's a reason why something has changed, the circumstances have changed, the prices have changed, and you might award something a little higher. You often would award something a little lower. It almost never would be that amount exactly. And so that's how they're usually worded on the town meeting warning.
Okay, because the issue is, if we take out my now, I want to take out 10,000, the
Yes.
projected fund balance is $27,000. Is that
Correct.
correct? So
Yep.
we don't really have a lot of leeway.
You're exactly right. And so that's where in the implementation of this, once we've actually been out to bid the roof and bid the carport, that the digital alarm would be bought for the $33,000. We know who we'd buy it from, we know what it'll cost. The other two items are going to need to be competitively bid, and if we get bids that are too high, select boards just won't award the work.
Right.
We'll have to figure something else out, just like any other project that's authorized by town meeting.
Okay.
May I cover the other couple of things?
Yeah, oh,
on
yeah.
the second page of the memo. So I know the board is well aware of this, but it's part of the motions that are going to be made in a few minutes if you do agree to proceed in this manner. And I think it's important for the public to understand that we had a complication when we got to the very end of the job that in the accounting for the police and fire facilities project overall, we came in well under budget. We were over $300,000 under the authorized funds. But in the particular component piece that is the 62 Black Mountain Road building, which is the police station and the central dispatch operation, we actually approached the ceiling that had been authorized by town meeting. There was a specific ceiling of $4.5 million out of the overall $13 million that was available for the project. And so when we got near to that $4.5 million, we actually, at this point, have spent $4,493,282. We're $7,000 short of the cap. When we got there, which was just in the final weeks of the project, we had one significant bill still to pay on the police station project for a piece of equipment we could not wait on. It had the radio console for the dispatch operation had to be installed. So we had it installed, and then we paid that bill from the town's capital fund rather than from the bond fund. So we mentioned that to the select board at the time. We have been through it with you. We've been through it with the Police Fire Facilities Building Committee. We're coming back now to ask you to put the question out to town meeting for the same reason as what Kate observed a few minutes ago about the $10,000 design for the carport, to have that charge be authorized to go against the bonds. And likewise, each of the other items this evening, the high roof at the police station, the carport at the police station, and even the fire department digital alarm receiver, since that's a piece of equipment that'll be installed at the police station. All of these items require town meeting authorization because they will be individually and in the aggregate above and beyond the $4.5 million original cap. So if town meeting, we've been through this with town bond counsel, Paul Giuliani, who has advised that so long as town meeting individually approves each of these additional items, that will be supplemental to the $4.5 million cap, and we'd be able to complete the project as it's proposed. So to summarize, right now there's about $385,000 in the bond fund, and I want to say, why would we not have a more precise number? Because every day a little more interest goes into that fund. So last week it was $385 and a few dollars, and it goes up a little bit each day. It's going to keep going up in the weeks ahead until town meeting has taken an action, and then these projects actually get implemented. But in the final analysis, when we get to the very end, there'll be the 385 minus the 100 for the high roof, minus the 150 for the carport, minus the 33 for the digital alarm receiver, minus the 64,725 for the Motorola radio that already was installed, the console, and minus the $10,000 for the carport design, would leave $27,275 plus whatever interest accrues between now and when we reach that moment when all these other things have been taken care of. And the final authorization we're asking for is that whatever that balance is at that time be transferred to the capital fund, where it can only be spent in the future for purposes, capital purposes, that would be approved by the select board and by representative town meeting.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions about that? This makes sense. Anyone in the public have any questions about that?
So to be clear,
No.
we might get that carport for less than 100.
We could.
Absolutely. Right, this is just a placeholder for the public's reminder. This is a placeholder that we would approve, and we would hope the bids would come in lower than the placeholder.
Which they often do.
Which they very often
We
do.
like that.
People like to be competitive.
Okay, so right now what we need to do is make some motions so that this can go on to town meeting.
So many motions.
And we have 5.
And before someone starts the excruciating process of reading through all of this, I'd like to suggest that based on what we've discussed around the $10,000,
Oh, yeah.
that this actually become a 6-part motion,
Yep.
where number 5 would now be using the same language as in number 4, although I don't have an invoice payment date because we haven't received and paid the invoice yet. But if you could
I see what you mean.
just
Yep.
say that the expenditure that has already been authorized for the $10,000 for the design work would be treated in the same manner as the Green Mountain Communications invoice.
Right.
That can go in as number 5, and then number 5 would become number 6.
6, okay. I totally get it.
Thank you.
Hopefully somebody else gets it. Do you guys get that?
Sure.
We're just crossing out like 64,000 and putting 10, and then crossing out Green Mountain Communications, putting Austin Design.
Well,
that would be another.
In addition to actually reading it as written.
Oh, yeah,
That's
no,
more
that's
like
what I'm saying.
duplicating
Yes,
it, but
exactly right.
duplication.
You're
That's
taking,
exactly
you're
right.
taking it twice.
Yes, please.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
So who wants to go first?
I'd be willing to read this, but I don't,
We need-
the changes, someone else would have to come
Oh,
in
yeah.
and make
We
the
can do
changes.
that.
Do we want to do them one at a time?
I could read
Or
them
do we-
all.
Is it better for what's better for the minutes or anything? Does it matter?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah, and we'll jump in around between 4 and 6.
Okay.
Sure.
And when we
Unless
get to
there's a
5,
controversial
we'll tell you how to say it.
I don't feel like there's a controversial one.
I don't think so
we'll
either.
approve them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the following recommendations for final action at the representative town meeting on March 23rd, 2019. Number 1, to authorize the expenditure of approximately $100,000 to replace the high roof section at the police station at 62 Black Mountain Road using funds from the bonds issued in furtherance of Representative Town Meeting's approval of project on March 12, 2016. Number 2, to authorize the expenditure of approximately $150,000 to construct a carport at the police station at 62 Black Mountain Road using funds from the bonds issued in furtherance of Representative Town Meeting's approval of project on March 12, 2016. 3, to authorize the expenditure of approximately $33,000 to purchase a digital alarm receiver and install it at the police station at 62 Black Mountain Road using funds from the bonds issued in furtherance of Representative Town Meeting's approval of the project on March 12, 2016. 4, to authorize that an expenditure of $64,725 paid on an invoice dated October 31st, 2017 from, and it's not Green Mountain.
No, keep going.
Yep, you're gonna
Keep reading this.
From Green Mountain Communications, Inc., be charged against the bonds issued in furtherance of Representative Town Meeting's approval of the project on March 12, 2016.
Now reread that, but change 64 to 10K and Green Mountain to Austin Design.
And don't have the date.
And
That's
just
it. I'm
strike
gonna
out
read
the
the same
invoice.
exact thing,
Do you want me to
just
read
change
it?
the dollar amount.
Yes.
Here. Let me. Okay.
Thank you. Sorry.
You did good. Can I just read it, or do we have to have Sean to read it?
No.
Well,
Can I just read it?
somebody's making a motion
I'm-
so far,
I'm-
it's been Shanta, so we can vote on these four
Okay,
that
let's
she
do
made,
that.
someone else can
Okay.
continue the motion.
Okay. So Shonda has made 4 motions, which I will not reread because we'll take us an eternity. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The first 4 motions, 5-0. Does somebody want to read 5, or do you want me to just do it because I know what it is? I'll do it. I move to authorize that an expenditure of $10,000 paid on an invoice from Austin Design, be charged against the bonds issued in furtherance of Representative Town Meeting's approval of the project on March 12th, 2016. I further move that we authorize that upon completion of the above enumerated 4 or 5 actions, any remaining funds from the bonds issued in furtherance of Representative Town Meeting's approval on October 20th, 2012 and on March 12th, 2016 be transferred to the capital fund to be used for further capital expenses at the discretion of the Select Board and Representative Town Meeting. All those in favor of those 2 motions, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0, or motions carried 5-0.
Well done.
And thanks for Austin Design for coming tonight.
Thank you.
We appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the room clears.
Okay, we have one last issue, which is the municipal self-governance proposal from the Vermont League of Cities and Towns.
Say it 3 times fast.
I know, blah, blah, blah.
Govern ourselves.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
So, the Vermont League of Cities and Towns is working with legislators, some of whom from our area and some from around the state, others from around the state, to introduce legislation in this session that begins next week in Montpelier, actually this week in Montpelier, to propose a limited self-government pilot program for municipalities. And what that means is Vermont, we've talked about many times in the different decisions that face the select board here, about Vermont being a Dillon's rule state. And in a Dillon's rule state, there are only 9 left in the United States. Municipalities can only take actions that are explicitly authorized by the state government. In home rule states, which the other 41 are, municipalities can take any action that is not explicitly prohibited by the state government. So there's a long tradition of Dillon's rule here. There have been many different efforts to even partially move into home rule in Vermont. Those have all been rejected over the years. And so the league is not attempting to pursue anything that resembles full-blown home rule, but they're doing something really important, which is following an example that they became aware of that had happened in West Virginia about a decade ago, similarly very strong Dillon's rule state. They're proposing that under state supervision and state control, that a handful of municipalities be allowed through an application process and an oversight process to exercise limited self-governance through a pilot project period of time. So the proposal as it is being submitted to the legislature is that it would be a 10-year pilot project. The process would be that there'd be a state oversight board that would be appointed that would receive applications from communities that actually apply to participate. They would choose which municipalities would be allowed to participate, and then those municipalities would exercise the limited self-governance authority that would be provided through this legislation during the pilot project. And the state would judge whether or not that experiment here in Vermont was successful. In West Virginia, they tried it first on a 5-year basis with 4 municipalities, and they were so pleased with the results that they expanded it to quite a few more municipalities in an additional 5 years. They're now at the end of the first 10 years, and they're looking at even a further expansion at this time. So in a circumstance where sort of politically and structurally the governance system was very similar to our own, the going slowly and having the state retain the oversight authority as the pilot project unfolded worked very successfully there. We hope to have the opportunity to have it work successfully here in Vermont. The item before you this evening is a request that you pass a motion that expresses the town's strong support for the proposal that's being made by the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, so that we all, in our various capacities as we see fit, can provide support in lobbying not only our local legislators but others, together with other municipal officials from around the state, in the hopes that there will be some municipalities that will get this opportunity. One final point I'd like to make is this is not the moment at which you would be asked to decide whether or not we would want to participate in the experiment. That would come later, much later actually, if the legislation is adopted as it's proposed. Then it would be a year from now that the select board would be deciding whether or not to propose to town meeting having Brattleboro participate in the pilot project. Town meeting would then decide whether or not we would apply. If we were authorized to apply, that process would go on through the summer of 2020. And by the fall of 2020, the state oversight panel would have selected the municipalities that are going to participate. So this would take a while to unfold. There are decisions to be made later. But tonight, we've asked as a regional economic hub community for more flexibility in managing our own affairs, and particularly our revenue streams, so that we wouldn't be as completely dependent upon the property tax. And support for the league's measure would provide that in a limited measure, limited scope, not just for hub communities, but for all communities.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions or comments on the board?
I have a couple of comments, not about this, about this, but indirectly. One is that we, after this, I'd like us to, rather than adjourn, consider adding a similar resolution to the town meeting to have a conversation there as well, because everybody at town meeting is relatively active in the community and in contact with our legislators, which is where this would happen. And also that I don't know how, what the constraints are on a select board in terms of lobbying for legislation, but I think that we should, the people that were just here asking to advertise to increase the business activity and the number of people living here and maybe moving here. And one of the biggest constraints for people, for the growth around here, particularly housing, is the high property tax. And even if we did the 1% loss tax, it's not going to be anything compared to what we might be able to do with all these other options in terms of getting our property tax so that it's somewhat similar to the surrounding community. So people would actually, well, I'll build a house in Brattleboro. Not if it's going to be twice as much for taxes. So it's really in the broad interest of the community to support this, and I would like us to play a role, if we can, in making sure that they at least are informed about it, if not supporting it. So anyway, I'm not sure where that would happen or how that would happen. The resolution I can make as a motion. The rest of it we can talk about again later.
Does anyone else have any questions, concerns?
No, I think this is an exciting opportunity to be a part of, and
I'm really glad to put my support behind it.
The one caution, I'm totally for it, is that as it goes through the legislature, that Peter needs to keep the board informed, because there's, I know it's not, there's always that 1% chance that somebody's gonna add something really wacky to it.
Right.
So that we need to be able to know about it, so we can stop
Right.
that wacky thing, advocate for
Right.
that wacky thing not to happen. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
The league is seasoned,
That's a good
the league
concern.
pretty well, I mean, I get that, maybe everybody doesn't, I thought I
Weekly
assumed we all did.
Yeah.
But they do a pretty good, their legislative update is pretty good, but I agree, it's a good idea. And the other thing is for us to know when there's a crucial moment. I mean,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
one of our senators is in leadership, is the president of the Senate, and the other is on the committee that will oversee this.
Yes.
But they still have all the rest of
They don't
the
pick- yeah.
legislature to deal with.
Right.
So we might want to be contacting other people we know in other communities or other
Absolutely.
legislators that we know, or whatever, just to keep the pressure on.
And the league will help us understand the right folks to get in touch with,
Right.
and the right timing for that. So
Yeah.
I'll be staying in very close contact with the league as this unfolds, and I will make sure that if there's anything that happens with this that isn't reflected in the weekly updates, that you get that called out to you explicitly, so you can judge how that affects our participation.
I don't know if this is general agreement. I would like to see us be an activist board on this, not just a participant, but really actively promoting it.
I'd like to say that I'm super excited, but you know that, because I think one of our first meetings when I got elected 2 years ago, we talked about this issue, and I said that I really wanted to try to drive that a little bit. And I wanted to just acknowledge everyone's work that has worked on this for a while. I mean, you yourself, Kate, were
Dave
at,
Gartenstein.
that's what I was going to say, David Gartenstein's work. I just ran into the other day. I don't see him much, but I ran into him.
You need to get arrested.
No, he wasn't in cuffs or anything.
No, I know.
And of course, Peter's work recently on it, and I see, you're joining the VLCT's board of directors. I think there might be some sort of, maybe not causation, but a correlation in that regard. So thanks for your work on it. And I'm super excited about this, and I think people need to realize how important it is, and I think it's going to be our jobs to kind of educate people as to why it's so important.
Why
and
it is.
why we keep saying things like, we're a Dillon rule state,
So we
therefore we
can't.
cannot do blank.
Right. Whole lot of
So when-
cans.
Right.
Yeah.
But of course, if we gain more abilities, it comes with responsibilities. So we need to be able to talk about
Yeah.
the pros and cons. But I see a lot of pros in this, and super exciting. It's a little wonky to explain to people, but
No, but it's an exciting opportunity. I do agree with that. Take our power.
One of the, one of the ways to do it is when people call up or write you and say, gosh, this property tax is really killing me. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to stay here. You need to do something about it. And the response can be, actually, you can do something about it. And if we've got a strategic, say you can call this number and talk to this person and help us do what you're asking us to do, because otherwise we really can't stop it. The growth continues and there's nothing we can do.
Public comment on this?
Great.
Yeah.
Mickey?
So I really appreciate, I can't even imagine how much work has gone into this, and is going to continue to go into this. And I'm learning about this, and from the handout I saw on the table, I see that in the draft that's being proposed for, that there is a proposed limit to only 10 municipalities in Vermont. And I don't know the total number of towns or municipalities in Vermont, but I see no reason justifying a limit for the potential. I mean, why not give every town a chance to empower themselves this way? And I, with appreciation of the Vermont City Town League, we also shouldn't really depend on what they've already led and what their direction is with however Brattleboro decides to draft what they're going to propose as legislation. And even if legislators don't approve of it, we should still consider the validity of our own public's will. And not just consider it, but respect that and engage and act upon our own public will.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any comments? Would anyone like to make a motion on the board?
I would also like to, like, whenever, I would love to see this done so much sooner than what the anticipated timeline is for it, but I'm also willing to apply and be involved in it as much as possible.
Great, thank you. Anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to express strong support for the Vermont League of Cities and Towns proposal to the Vermont State Legislature to create a limited self-governance pilot program for Vermont municipalities.
Brandy has made a motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Should I put can we put this on another agenda for a resolution for town meeting and talk about whether we want to do that?
So,
Can we do it that? What's the best way to do that?
Based on Dave's suggestion, unless anybody has a concern about that, what we'll do is as we prepare the draft warning, we'll include an item.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. We don't,
Yep.
That makes sense.
Okay.
We're all done? Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
So moved. We have a motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thanks for the pen.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes, I was gonna ask you the same question.
I have a thing.
Oh, crackers. What is with my back tonight?